There are players who get into the record books, and then there are players who rewrite the entire thing, tear out the old pages, and make everyone forget who came before them. Caitlin Clark just did that, again, on national television in enemy territory on the same night the league's own broadcast partner decided she didn't even deserve to be mentioned in the MVP conversation. Let that sink in for a second. The most dominant guard in women's basketball right now, coming off a 5-game stretch where she averaged 29.4 points and 9 assists per game, dropped her 4th career triple-double in a 112-98 demolition of the Portland Fire, and the network covering the game didn't even put her name on the MVP graphic they aired during the broadcast. Not 5th, not honorable mention, not even a footnote. She wasn't on it at all. If you want to understand why this sport drives people absolutely crazy, why Fever fans are losing their minds in the comment sections every single night, and why the rest of the league genuinely does not know what to do with this woman, tonight was your answer. Because while the establishment was busy pretending she doesn't exist, Caitlin Clark was out there making history that no player in the 28-year existence of this league has ever made before. And when the buzzer finally sounded and the destruction in Portland was complete, her teammate Sophie Cunningham did something that stopped the entire internet cold. Something so unexpectedly human, so raw and real, that it reminded every single person watching why this team, this season, and this moment in women's basketball is genuinely unlike anything we have ever seen. So if you have been sleeping on what the Indiana Fever are doing right now, tonight is the night that changes. Sit down, pay attention, because this one goes deep. Before we even talk about what happened on the court, you need to understand what kind of environment the Indiana Fever walked into on Friday night. The Moda Center in Portland, Oregon is not exactly a neutral venue on a normal night, but this was not a normal night by any definition. Outside the arena, before the doors even opened, there were organized protests and counter-protests happening simultaneously on the sidewalks. Groups with signs, chanting, demonstrating, all of it centered around Sophie Cunningham and the comments she had made publicly about transgender athletes in women's sports. It was one of the most charged pre-game atmospheres of the entire WNBA season. And the moment the Fever stepped onto that court, the hostility followed them through the tunnel. When Sophie Cunningham checked into the game, the volume inside that building spiked immediately. The boos came fast, they came loud, and they came from everywhere. Fans were holding up flags specifically in her direction. The front rows were packed with people who showed up not just to cheer for Portland, but to make Sophie Cunningham's night as miserable as humanly possible. A lesser player wilts in that environment. A lesser team loses its focus and gets dragged into the chaos. But this Indiana Fever squad, they had apparently not gotten the memo that they were supposed to be rattled. Because what happened next was the kind of response that only truly elite competitors are capable of giving. Sophie Cunningham checked in, absorbed the full force of that crowd's hatred, stood at the three-point line, caught the ball, and buried it, clean, cold-blooded, not a trace of hesitation. And then she turned to the front row, stared them down, and threw up an L sign, loser, right to their faces, in their own building, with thousands of people screaming at her. The crowd got louder, she got calmer. That is the Sophie Cunningham that nobody outside of Indiana fully prepared for, because the national conversation about her has been so consumed by the controversy surrounding her public comments that a lot of people forgot she is actually a menace on a basketball court. On Friday night, she finished with 13 points on 3 of 5 shooting from three-point range, a plus-minus of positive 18, second best on the entire team behind only Caitlin Clark, and an attitude that turned that hostile arena into her own personal proving ground, one bucket at a time. Every single made shot, she had something to say, not to the referee, not to the opposing players, directly to the crowd, to the exact people who showed up specifically to break her. She would hit a three, spin around, and let them hear it. She would make a free throw, and when they booed her at the line, she just smiled, drained it, and kept going.
By the third quarter, something was shifting inside that building. The energy was changing. You could feel the air going out of the room with every Sophie Cunningham bucket. But while she was busy breaking their spirit from the outside, her teammate was doing something so far beyond basketball that it belonged in a completely different category of performance.
Caitlin Clark's stat line from Friday night reads like something a video game developer would flag as unrealistic and remove from the game. 26 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, 5 of 9 from the field, 14 of 17 from the free throw line, 34 minutes, a triple-double, her 4th career triple-double, putting her in a 3-way tie for the 3rd most in WNBA history. And that is just the single-game number. To understand the full scope of what is happening with this player right now, you have to zoom out and look at the 5-game window that led to this performance, because it is genuinely one of the most ridiculous stretches of individual basketball this league has ever seen. Over those 5 games, Caitlin Clark averaged 29.4 points per game, 9 assists, 4 rebounds, and shot 48.7% from beyond the three-point arc. The Indiana Fever scored over 100 points in all 4 of those games, making them the first WNBA team in league history to score 100 or more points in 4 consecutive games. And just 1 week before the Portland performance, Clark went to Seattle and dropped 45 points and 10 assists in a single game. 45 points, 10 assists. Nobody, not a single player in the 28-year history of this league had ever recorded 40 or more points and 10 or more assists in the same game before. Not Diana Taurasi, not Sue Bird, not Breanna Stewart, not anyone. Caitlin Clark went to Seattle, did something that had literally never been done in the history of professional women's basketball, and somehow it barely made a ripple outside of the people who were already paying attention. And then she came back 5 days later and dropped a triple-double in Portland. This is not a hot streak. A hot streak ends. What Caitlin Clark is doing right now is something else entirely. And then there is the record book, the actual, factual, statistical record book of the Women's National Basketball Association, a league that has existed since 1997, that has featured Hall of Famers, Olympic gold medalists, and generational talents. And Caitlin Clark is in the process of rewriting it so completely that future players will be chasing numbers she set in her 3rd season. On Friday night in Portland, in the middle of that 112-98 win, Caitlin Clark crossed 2 milestones simultaneously. She became the fastest player in WNBA history to reach 1,500 career points and 500 career assists, doing it in just 78 games. The previous record for reaching that combined milestone was held by Sabrina Ionescu, who took 97 games to get there. Clark did it in 78. That is 19 fewer games. For context, an entire WNBA regular season is 44 games, so Clark shaved nearly half a season off the previous record. And it does not stop there. Earlier this summer, she became the fastest player in league history to reach 500 career assists alone, getting there in 59 games, beating Seattle Storm legend Sue Bird, who needed 82 games to hit the same mark. She is the fastest in league history to 500 points and 150 assists in a single season, a record she set as a rookie and then matched again in 2026. She currently ranks 2nd in the entire WNBA in assists per game, averaging 8 per contest. And through 28 games of the 2026 season, she is averaging 21.5 points and 7.9 assists, numbers that, if sustained, would put her among the greatest individual single seasons this league has ever seen. The all-time single-season assist record stands at 294, set by Ticha Penicheiro back in 2000. Clark is on pace to blow past it. Every single week there is a new number, a new threshold crossed, a new name, Sue Bird, Sabrina Ionescu, Andrea Stinson, removed from the record and replaced with hers. The history of this league is being edited in real time, and somehow the people who run the broadcasts decided she wasn't even worth putting on an MVP graphic. Let's talk about that graphic,
Because if you want to understand the specific, focused, almost surgical way in which Caitlin Clark gets handled by the institutions surrounding this league, Friday night gave you the clearest possible example. During the Indiana Fever's game against Portland, the very game in which Clark was recording her 4th career triple-double, crossing 2 simultaneous all-time records and leading her team to a 5th consecutive victory, ION Television, the official broadcast partner of the WNBA, put up an MVP candidates graphic on screen. 5 names. 5 players deemed worthy of consideration for the league's highest individual honor. A'ja Wilson, Kelsey Mitchell, Paige Buckers, Olivia Miles, Breanna Stewart. No Caitlin Clark. Not on the list. Not even in the conversation, according to the people being paid to cover the league she is currently dominating. Now, just so we are all operating on the same set of facts here, at the moment that graphic aired, Caitlin Clark had the 2nd best MVP odds of any player in the WNBA on FanDuel Sportsbook, sitting at plus 1,000, behind only A'ja Wilson. She ranked 3rd in the entire league in scoring and 2nd in assists. Her team was on a 5-game winning streak. She had just done something in Seattle that no player had ever done in 28 years of professional women's basketball. And the network covering her game decided she was not a top 5 MVP candidate. The reaction from fans was immediate and volcanic. Social media erupted. People were pulling up her stats side by side with the 5 players who made the graphic and asking simple, direct, unanswerable questions. She's averaging 29.4 and 9 assists over the last 5 games, and she doesn't make the list? She literally has better numbers than 3 of those players. They would rename the award just to keep her name off it. And those reactions were not coming from a fringe corner of the internet. They were coming from tens of thousands of people who had just watched this woman record a historic triple-double in real time, while the broadcast was simultaneously arguing she didn't belong in the MVP conversation. But it was not just the graphic, because this kind of institutional resistance to Caitlin Clark has been building for years. Remember Gino Aorima, the legendary UConn coach, one of the most decorated figures in the history of women's basketball, going on a national radio show before Clark's rookie season and telling listeners that the fans who believed she would go into the WNBA and dominate were stupid and disrespectful to the league. Remember him saying those fans gave women's basketball a bad name? She went on to win Rookie of the Year unanimously, set the all-time WNBA rookie scoring record, led the league in assists, and the same people who said she couldn't handle it were suddenly very quiet. Jason Whitlock recently called her an emotional train wreck and a whiner. The same Jason Whitlock who, in the same breath, admitted she had improved her shot selection significantly and was producing numbers that clearly placed her among the league's elite. The criticism and the evidence against it exist in the same sentence. It has always been this way with Caitlin Clark. From the first day she arrived in this league, there has been a coordinated effort, sometimes deliberate, sometimes just lazy, to minimize what she is doing. And every single time, she responds the same way. She goes out and makes it impossible to look away. Here is something worth sitting with for a second. The Indiana Fever were not supposed to be here. Not this fast, not this convincingly, not in the middle of a stretch that has them looking like one of the best teams in the entire WNBA. Coming into 2026, the narrative around Indiana was still cautious. Caitlin had missed most of 2025 with quad and groin injuries, playing just 13 games. The team had gone 20-20 the year before she got hurt and missed the postseason in embarrassing fashion. There were real questions about whether the Fever were actually a championship-caliber team or just a fascinating science experiment built around one exceptional player. Those questions are not being asked right now. The Fever are 19-10. They are a legitimate contender. And the reason they are a legitimate contender is not just Clark. It is what Clark makes possible for the players around her. Kelsey Mitchell dropped 26 points in Portland. She has been a completely different player with Clark running the offense because opposing defenses cannot afford to cheat off anyone else when Clark is operating as a full-court weapon at all times. Aaliyah Boston is posting one of the best seasons of her career. Michaela Tempson is developing into a reliable two-way piece.
And Sophie Cunningham, the enforcer, the chaos agent, the woman who walks into hostile buildings and responds to hatred with three-pointers, is giving this team an edge and an identity that goes far beyond her box score contributions. The Fever have scored 100 points in 4 consecutive games for the first time in league history. The offensive machine they have built is not a fluke. It is the product of a superstar who makes every single person around her better, operating at the peak of her powers, surrounded by teammates who have bought completely into what they are building. And the rest of the WNBA knows it. You can see it in the desperate defensive schemes, the full-court traps from the opening tip, the double teams every time Clark catches the ball above half court, the physical play designed to disrupt her rhythm. Teams are spending full practices trying to figure out how to slow her down. Their coaches are going home at night and watching film until 2 in the morning looking for a blueprint. And she's still averaging 29.4 points over the last 5 games. There is no blueprint. That's the problem.
But the moment that made this night unforgettable, the moment that cut through all of the statistics and the controversy and the MVP debate and landed somewhere completely different, happened after the final buzzer. The game was over. Indiana had won by 14. Portland's players were heading to the locker room. The crowd that had spent the entire night screaming and booing and waving flags was quietly making its way to the exits, deflated and silent, the energy completely drained out of the building. And Sophie Cunningham, who had just spent 34 minutes being used as a human lightning rod by thousands of hostile fans, was walking off the court when she spotted something. A little girl in the stands, wearing Indiana Fever gear, a Caitlin Clark number 22 jersey specifically, sitting with her mom in the middle of a sea of Portland supporters. This little kid had come to this game in this building on this particular night of all nights and had been cheering for the visiting team the entire time. Surrounded by people who were actively hostile to everything the Fever represented, she had waved her Fever colors and stayed loyal through all of it. Sophie Cunningham saw her, and without any cameras being called over, without any PR coordination, without any of the performative athlete meets fan staging that we have all become so used to, she walked straight over to that little girl, reached down, took off her game-worn shoe right there on the court, and handed it to her. The kid's face completely collapsed. She stared at the shoe, she looked up at Sophie, she looked back at the shoe, and then the emotions just overtook her entirely. Her mom, standing right beside her, broke down in tears. The Indiana Fever posted the video to their social media accounts, and what happened next tells you everything you need to know about where this team, this player, and this moment in women's basketball sits in the cultural conversation right now. The video went viral almost instantly. Hundreds of thousands of views, thousands of comments, people who had never watched a WNBA game sharing it, parents watching it with their kids, former athletes recognizing something real in it. "Sophie is beautiful inside and out," one person wrote. "These young girls absolutely love her. She's an inspiration to them, and moments like this are exactly why representation matters." Another person said, "She brought it into a hostile environment and never wavered. Thankful for amazing role models for young women and girls everywhere." And the thing is, Cunningham didn't make a speech. She didn't turn to the cameras. She didn't post about it herself. She just gave a little girl her shoe, took a selfie with her and her mom, and kept walking. That restraint, that genuineness is what made it land the way it did. Because in a sports landscape absolutely saturated with manufactured moments and engineered PR gestures, something that simple and that real hits differently. And the fact that it happened in Portland, in the most charged, hostile, politically divided atmosphere of the entire WNBA season, made it mean something more. Among all the noise and the protests and the controversy, there was just a player and a little girl and a shoe and a memory that kid is going to carry with her for the rest of her life.
So here is where we are. The Indiana Fever are 19-10. They are playing the best basketball in franchise history. They have scored 100+ points in 4 consecutive games, something no WNBA team has ever done before.
Their superstar is the fastest player in league history to reach 1,500 career points and 500 career assists, has already broken or tied a half-dozen all-time records in her third season, and is currently producing a 5-game stretch so dominant that it has people searching for historical comparisons and coming up empty. Their enforcer is walking into the most hostile buildings on the road schedule, getting booed from the moment she arrives, and responding by burying threes, silencing crowds, and handing shoes to little girls after the final buzzer. The coaches who said Clark would need years to adjust are sitting in film rooms trying to understand how she still found 10 open teammates in a game where the entire defensive strategy was designed to stop her. The people who were given national platforms to tell us she wasn't an MVP candidate are now watching the box score and hoping nobody pulls up the tape of what they said. And somewhere in the back of their minds, the front offices of every team chasing a playoff spot right now are running the same uncomfortable calculation that the team they are going to have to beat if they want to go anywhere this postseason has Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham, and that there is not a plan anywhere in the league that has proven capable of handling both of them at the same time. The question is not whether Indiana is for real anymore. That conversation is finished. The only question left, the one that nobody in the institutional structure of this league seems to want to answer honestly, is at what point does it become genuinely indefensible to keep this player out of the MVP conversation? She broke a record Friday night that stood for nearly 2 decades. She is the second most likely player to win the award, according to the people who put real money on these things. She dropped a triple-double during the same broadcast where they decided she didn't belong on the list. And maybe that is the thing worth sitting with long after you close this video, because the gap between what Caitlin Clark is actually doing and how the establishment is choosing to frame what Caitlin Clark is doing has never been wider. At some point, the framing stops mattering. At some point, the numbers speak so loudly that no graphic, no snub, no anonymous coaching quote, and no national television oversight can drown them out. We might already be at that point. We might have crossed it in Portland on Friday night, somewhere between the triple-double and the shoe and the little girl in the stands with tears running down her face. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Is Clark the undisputed MVP of the WNBA right now? And after everything that happened in Portland, the boos, the records, the shoe, where does this Indiana Fever team rank among the most compelling stories in women's sports right now? Let us know. Like and subscribe if this is the kind of content you want more of. We will see you next time.